Have you ever found yourself thinking about someone constantly? You wake up with them on your mind, you go through your day, and there they are. In your thoughts, you try to distract yourself, but they slip back in when you're quiet, when you're alone, when you're supposed to be focused on anything but them. It almost feels like the universe is trying to tell you something, right? And maybe it is. But here's the truth. Just because someone is on your mind all the time doesn't automatically mean they're meant to be in your life. It doesn't always mean it's love, destiny, or some spiritual confirmation. What it does mean, if you're willing to look deeper, is that your heart is trying to say something, and the universe, it might not be pointing you toward that person. It might be pointing you back to yourself. Let's unpack what those constant thoughts actually mean and what the universe might really be saying to you when someone just won't leave your mind. When you find yourself thinking about someone constantly, it can feel overwhelming. Every quiet moment, every scroll through your phone, every song on the radio somehow loops you back to them. You start to wonder if it's a sign, something mystical, spiritual, maybe even fate. You think there has to be a reason I can't stop thinking about them. And that's a fair thought to have. But what if the reason isn't what you assume it is? What if your mind isn't trying to send you toward that person, but is instead trying to draw your attention inward? The first thing we need to recognize is that the mind often repeats what's unresolved. When a connection, a conversation, or even a relationship ends without clarity or closure, your mind tries to finish the story. It replays moments, imagines what could have been said, what should have been different, or what might happen next. This repetitive loop isn't always romantic. It's often about resolution. Your brain is built to solve problems and close loops. When something is left open-ended, your thoughts circle back in an attempt to find meaning, closure, or control. And that constant thinking, that's not your soul crying out for a person. That's your mind trying to make sense of the experience. Sometimes we confuse mental fixation with emotional depth. You may feel the intensity of your thoughts and interpret that as confirmation that the connection was rare or significant. But thoughts can be obsessive without being meaningful. Think about how often your mind latches onto something small. A mistake you made in a conversation, a message left on read, a glance that lingered too long. And the repetition of those thoughts doesn't mean those moments were life-changing. It just means your mind is trying to process them. The same thing happens when someone's on your mind constantly. It's easy to think the universe is telling you to reach out, to hold on, to fight for something. But more often, the universe is asking you to listen, not to the noise in your head, but to the lesson beneath it. Your mind is a messenger. It's delivering signals from deeper parts of you, your insecurities, your hopes, your fears, your needs. When someone dominates your thoughts, ask yourself, what is this thought trying to teach me? Is it about this person or about what I felt with them? Are you missing them, or are you missing the feeling of being seen, desired, or emotionally connected? Sometimes the person is just a vessel your mind is using to highlight a deeper emotional need, and that's where the real work begins. It's tempting to romanticize constant thoughts as a sign of deep love or spiritual alignment, but love isn't always loud. It's not always obsessive. In fact, the most secure, grounded love often comes with peace, not the anxiety of wondering, waiting, or obsessing. If thinking about someone keeps you in a state of emotional turmoil, it might not be love you're feeling. It might be longing or attachment or even pain masked as passion. And the mind, especially when it's left unchecked, will continue to replay these feelings like a broken record. This is where self-awareness becomes your power. You have to stop and ask, is this thought serving me or is it trapping me? Because when someone is constantly on your mind, it can feel like you're stuck. You start organizing your life around this invisible connection. You interpret signs, you overanalyze similar interactions, and you wait for something, for them, for clarity. But that waiting keeps you stuck in a loop where nothing really changes. You end up living in your head instead of your life. Here's the truth. Thoughts are not commands. Just because you think about someone doesn't mean you're supposed to be with them. Just because they keep popping up in your head doesn't mean they're meant for you. The mind often confuses familiarity with importance. If a person, a relationship, or a memory left a deep imprint on you, your mind may return to it simply because it's familiar, not because it's right. Repetition creates the illusion of meaning. But repetition alone is not a reliable guide to truth. So what can you do when someone is always on your mind? First, notice the thought without judging it. Don't beat yourself up for still thinking about them. That only adds shame to the cycle. Instead, acknowledge the thought. Ask yourself what it's really about. Is it pointing to a need for closure, a desire to feel wanted, a wound you haven't healed? Once you start seeing the thought as a message, not a sentence, you begin to ask better questions. And better questions lead to better answers. Sometimes the person on your mind isn't your destiny. They're your mirror. They're showing you what still hurts. They're revealing the parts of you that are still seeking validation or healing. And when you can see that clearly, something shifts. You stop chasing the thought and start learning from it. You begin to do the deeper work. You take the energy that was looping around them and you redirect it back into your growth, your peace, your clarity. The next time someone is stuck in your thoughts, remember this. Your mind is not trying to trap you in the past. It's trying to lead you toward understanding. And the universe, it's not shouting go to them. It's whispering come back to yourself. The question isn't why they're on your mind. The real question is, what are they there to teach you? And when you answer that, you'll stop feeling stuck and start feeling free. When someone keeps showing up in your thoughts over and over again, it's easy to believe it means something profound. You may tell yourself, I must really care about them, or maybe this is a sign that we're meant to be. But often, the truth behind these constant thoughts has less to do with that person and more to do with something deeper inside you. Something that hasn't been addressed yet. Obsession or persistent mental focus on another person is often not about them at all. It's a reflection of an unmet need within you, a need for closure, a need for connection, or even a need for validation that you haven't fully given yourself. When your mind becomes fixated on someone, especially someone who may no longer be part of your life or someone you barely know well, it usually signals a hunger for something you believe they represent. That person becomes a symbol. Maybe they gave you attention when you were feeling invisible. Maybe they made you feel special when you were doubting your worth. Or maybe you had brief moments with them where you felt emotionally alive, seen, or hopeful. And now that they're distant, your mind clings to them. Not because they're the answer, but because they activated something inside you that you want to feel again. This is where so many people get stuck. You start believing that this person is the source of the feeling And therefore, the only way to feel whole again is to have them back. But that's not how emotions work. People can trigger emotions in us, but they are not the source of those emotions. The source is inside you. The feeling you miss, the closeness, the spark, the safety, the intimacy, that's something you can experience again, even without them. But when you don't realize this, your focus stays trapped on the person instead of the deeper emotional truth. The obsession becomes a cycle, and the more you think about them, the more emotionally depleted you feel. It's human nature to want to make sense of strong emotions. When someone suddenly disappears, when things go unfinished, or when you're left confused, your mind wants to fill in the gaps. It wants answers. But in the absence of answers, we often invent them. And more often than not, we idealize the person. We turn them into a fantasy, someone we believe is essential to our happiness, when in reality, they may have only touched something vulnerable in us. It's not always love. Sometimes it's just emotional impact. An emotional impact, especially when you're feeling unsteady in yourself, can feel like love. The reason your mind keeps going back to them isn't necessarily because they're so incredible, and it might be because part of you is still searching for something that you've been denying yourself. Maybe you've been looking for validation, someone to make you feel enough, attractive, lovable. And when that person came into your life, even briefly, they gave you a glimpse of that feeling. But once they were gone, instead of questioning the source of that need, your mind decided, I need them to feel that way again. That belief creates attachment. And attachment, especially when mixed with fantasy and emotional uncertainty, turns into obsession. There's another side to this too. Sometimes, your obsession isn't about longing for someone who made you feel good. Sometimes it's about someone who made you feel uncertain. Maybe they sent mixed signals, hot and cold behavior, or left you confused. That confusion creates tension, and your brain, in its effort to resolve that tension, keeps replaying every interaction, trying to decode what happened. This kind of obsession isn't about love. It's about seeking control, clarity, or closure that you didn't receive. And again, the person becomes the symbol of the answer, the resolution, the understanding you crave. What you have to realize is that this need for validation or certainty won't be satisfied by chasing the person. It can only be fulfilled by turning inward and understanding where the need came from in the first place. Maybe you didn't feel seen in past relationships. Maybe you've struggled with self-worth or abandonment. Maybe you've been giving so much to others without ever receiving it back. All of that builds up a desire to feel chosen, wanted, special. And when someone even slightly taps into that desire, your mind latches on. Not because they're the one, but because they awaken something vulnerable inside you. And this is where your growth begins. When you can sit with the discomfort of those thoughts and ask, what is this really about? You start to take your power back. You start to move away from thinking that someone else is the solution and instead move toward healing the part of you that's been waiting to be seen. You begin to realize that you don't need someone else to validate your worth. You need to reconnect with the version of you who already knows it. So the next time someone dominates your thoughts, don't jump to the conclusion that it's love or fate. Pause and ask yourself, what am I really seeking here? Is it them I want, or the feeling I had when I was with them? What do they represent to me? Security, excitement, belonging? And where in my life can I begin to create those feelings on my own terms? Because the truth is, you don't need to keep chasing someone to feel whole again. You don't need to wait for their message, their presence, or their permission to move forward. You are allowed to reclaim your mind, to shift your focus from what they meant to what you need. You can honor the emotional pull without being controlled by it, because ultimately, what the universe is showing you through these constant thoughts isn't that you need that person, it's that you need to come home to yourself, to fill the spaces that feel empty, to love yourself in the places that someone else temporarily lit up. And when you do that, you stop obsessing over what you lost and start reconnecting with everything you still have. When someone keeps showing up in your thoughts day after day, it's easy to believe that it must mean something, that their presence in your mind is not random, that it's a message, a sign, a cosmic hint from the universe. And maybe it is, but not in the way you think. See, the universe doesn't always speak in clear, obvious ways. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder and hand you a written note saying this person is your future. Instead, it nudges you, repeats certain experiences, whispers through emotion, sends signals through your body, your thoughts, your feelings. But here's the most important part. It's up to you to interpret it, because a sign is only as powerful as the meaning you give it. And sometimes we misinterpret what the universe is trying to show us. When someone's on your mind constantly, the universe might not be saying, go to them. It might be asking, why are you still holding on? Or what is it about them that you haven't yet healed in yourself? It might not be urging you to reach out. It could be pushing you to grow, to reflect, or to finally release. That's the tricky thing about repeated thoughts and emotional patterns. We often want them to mean something external, because looking outward feels easier than looking inward. But the truth is, not every emotional echo is a call to action. Some are calls to awareness. The universe often speaks in patterns. It knows that we don't always get the message the first time. So, it allows the same emotions, the same thoughts, the same types of people to come into our lives over and over again until we finally ask the right question. And the right question is rarely, how do I get them back? Or are we meant to be? The right question is, what am I being asked to learn here? That shift in perspective is powerful, because it stops the cycle of obsession and starts a journey of clarity. Your mind fixates on what feels unresolved, and the universe sometimes lets that fixation linger, not to torment you, but to guide you toward a lesson you haven't fully seen. Maybe you're meant to learn that you don't need someone to complete you. Maybe you're being asked to understand why you attach so quickly, why you idealize people, or why you seek validation from someone who can't give it. The thoughts aren't always telling you to pursue them. They might be trying to show you something about your emotional patterns that you've avoided looking at. This is why emotional maturity requires that you sit with your thoughts, not just act on them. That you observe them with curiosity, not desperation. Because if every time someone takes up mental space, you assume it means you need to go after them, you risk turning your healing journey into a cycle of repeated heartbreak. But when you pause and ask, why is this coming up again? You begin to take your power back. You shift from being a passive participant in your emotions to being the conscious interpreter of them. Sometimes someone is on your mind because they're familiar, not because they're right. Your subconscious is drawn to what feels known. And if you grew up around inconsistency, abandonment, or emotional distance, your mind may mistake those patterns as normal. So when you meet someone who triggers those same feelings, your mind latches on, not because it's love, but because it's what your nervous system remembers. In that case, the universe isn't telling you this person is the one. It's asking you to break the cycle, to see the difference between what's familiar and what's healthy. That's why interpretation matters. Two people can experience the same feeling and draw two completely different conclusions. One may feel, I can't stop thinking about them, it must be fate. Another may feel the same and say, this is an opportunity to examine what's unresolved in me. The first person may stay stuck. The second person grows. Not because one is smarter or more emotionally evolved, but because one was willing to go deeper into the message beneath the emotion. When the universe wants your attention, it often does so through repetition. If you've had the same kind of relationship over and over again, where you give too much, lose yourself, and end up hurt, don't ignore that pattern. It's not bad luck. It's not random. It's your opportunity to finally see yourself more clearly, to learn how to set boundaries, to understand what healthy love actually feels like, and to stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional safety. That's the deeper meaning behind someone being constantly on your mind. It's not always about romance. It's about reflection. Maybe you're meant to realize that you deserve someone who makes you calm, calm, not anxious, who shows up with clarity, not confusion, who matches your energy, not drains it. And maybe the reason this person is on your mind is because the universe is giving you a mirror, not a roadmap to get back to them, but a chance to see what still needs to be healed in you. The universe rarely gives you what you want immediately. It gives you experiences that shape you into the person who's ready to receive what they truly need. And if someone has entered your mind and won't leave, it could be because they were part of that shaping process. Not your forever person, but your turning point, the one who triggered your evolution. So instead of asking, why can't I stop thinking about them? Try asking, what are these thoughts really showing me? What do you need to resolve, to forgive, to let go of? What version of yourself do you need to grow into so that this kind of mental obsession no longer feels like love, but like an old story you've finally rewritten? The mind is powerful, but it's not always accurate. It gives meaning to what it repeats. And the universe will continue to whisper the same message until you truly hear it. Someone being constantly on your mind isn't always about them. More often, it's about what you're being called to transform in yourself. Listen closely, not to the noise of the thoughts, but to the lesson underneath them. Because that's where real peace, clarity, and growth begins. There's a moment we all face when someone won't leave our thoughts. It happens in the middle of the night, or when we're trying to focus, or when a memory suddenly plays in our mind like a movie. You feel like something deeper is at play, like the universe is trying to send you a message. And maybe it is, but that message often isn't about them. It's about you. Because when someone is stuck in your mind constantly, it's not just about connection, it's also about reflection. The universe isn't always directing you back to another person. Often it's trying to direct you back to yourself. Your mind isn't looping because they're the answer. It's looping because there's something inside you that needs to be seen, understood, and finally healed. When you constantly think about someone, it can create the illusion that they're essential to your happiness. It can make you feel like your peace, your joy, or your sense of completion depends on them. But that's an illusion. That's not love. That's disconnection from self. The truth is, when you're fully connected to who you are, your values, your worth, your path, you don't get stuck obsessing over someone else. You might miss them. You might even feel sadness or longing, but you don't lose yourself in the process. You don't forget who you are. And that's what happens when a person consumes your thoughts. You start looking outward for what you've disconnected from within. The universe uses these moments of obsession as signals. It lets the thoughts repeat so that you finally stop and ask, why am I still holding on? And often the answer isn't because you're still in love. It's because you're still incomplete. Something in that connection made you feel seen, valued, worthy. And once it ended or changed, that feeling disappeared with them. But that's the deeper message. Your sense of worth was never meant to depend on another person. If they made you feel worthy, they simply reminded you of something you forgot. And now the universe is asking you to reclaim it, not through them, but through your own healing. This is why certain people linger in our minds long after they've left our lives. It's not because we're supposed to run after them. It's because we haven't yet reclaimed the parts of ourselves we gave away. Maybe you gave away your self-respect, trying to hold on to someone who was inconsistent. Maybe you abandoned your own needs because you thought being low mentally would make them stay. Or maybe you shrunk parts of yourself to fit into the version of you that you thought they'd love. And now that they're gone, your mind can't stop replaying it, not because you miss them, but because you miss you. The you that you silenced, the you that you neglected. When the universe brings someone to your mind over and over again, it's rarely about going back to that person. It's more often about going back to the place within where you lost connection with yourself. This is the moment where you get to ask yourself the hard questions. Where did I abandon myself for their approval? What did I ignore in my own intuition just to keep the peace? What was I so afraid of losing that I gave away my truth? And most importantly, what version of me do I need to return to? Healing doesn't always come from closure with another person. Sometimes it comes from giving yourself the closure you didn't get, telling yourself the truth that you were afraid to hear when they were around, saying they weren't ready for the love I offered, or I was holding on because I didn't believe I'd find better. The mind clings to the past not because it was perfect, but because it was familiar. And until you create something stronger, healthier, and more grounded within yourself, the old story will keep playing on repeat. The universe isn't cruel for doing this. It's not punishing you. It's teaching you. It's asking you to go inward to understand the root of your attachment, to finally rewrite the story that made you believe you needed someone else to complete you. That's what this obsession is really about. It's not about the other person at all. It's about the opportunity to meet yourself in the most honest, raw, and loving way possible. We are trained to believe that love is about merging with another person. But the deeper truth is, love is about returning to wholeness in yourself. And when someone takes up all the space in your mind, it often means you've forgotten how to prioritize your own voice, your own peace, your own purpose. You've handed over the pen and let them write the story. But now the universe is handing the pen back, is telling you, it's time to remember who you were before them. It's time to rebuild the parts of you that you handed away too easily. There's power in letting go, not just of the person, but of the idea that they held your happiness. There's strength in deciding that your peace is too valuable to be dictated by someone else's presence or absence. And there's freedom in realizing that your thoughts don't control you. You control how you respond to them. So when those thoughts come back, and they will, greet them not with panic or urgency, but with wisdom. Ask them what they're here to show you. Let them lead you inward. Let them show you where you still need healing, attention, love. Because the most beautiful thing that can come from constant thoughts of another person isn't reunion, it's self-discovery. It's the decision to stop chasing someone who left and start finding the version of yourself that's been waiting to return. That's the message. That's the invitation. That's the real gift the universe is offering you. And when you take it, when you begin to pour back into yourself, you realize that the peace you were searching for in them was always yours to give.